Welcome everybody to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting of Tuesday the 20th of October. I declare the meeting open at 9 o'clock and I would like to advise meeting attendees that this meeting is being audio recorded. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and their elders past, present and emerging. I note that Councillors Power and Jeremiah have submitted leaves of absences due to their attendance at the LGAQ conference. Do any other councillors have a leave of absence to declare? No. Can I please I now move a motion that Councillors Power and Jeremiah be granted a leave of absence in accordance with section 5.3C3 of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code. Is there a seconder to this motion? Thank you, Councillor Lane. All those in favour, please raise their hand. That motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I note today that we've got a new set of legislation that impacts our committee meetings, so I'm going to read from the script, and if we get to a conflict of interest, I apologise for how I sound because it'll be the first time any of us have done any of this. Councillors, with your indulgence, we do have a delegation that I'm going to rearrange the committee agenda for so that we can let them return to their day. It's a confidential deputation in relation to the 2020 Healthy Land and Water Report Card. And let me buzz through to the right part of the script for going into confidential under the new legislation. I note so the item that we're referring to is item 6.1. I note that item 6.1 is a confidential deputation. Before I move into discussion, do any councillors have a conflict of interest they'd like to declare? There being none, this deputation is considered confidential due to the following reason. The information contained within this executive briefing presentation is embargoed and is to be treated as confidential until the official media launch of the Healthy Land and Water 2020 report card on the 5th of November 2020. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? Thank you. Councillor Lane has moved. Councillor Bradley has seconded. Please raise your hand to show support. That is moved that the meeting be closed at the time of 9:03 under section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to discuss the confidential matters in item 6.1. That motion has been carried and we will now enter closed session and the recording will be turned off until the meeting is open again. Apologies to the gallery. We'll bring you back and continue with our riveting committee meeting as soon as this deputation is finished. Councillors, we're now back in open session and I should have a motion on the screen for you shortly. Thank you very much, councillors. Councillor Bradley would like to move that motion. Councillor Karansky would like to second that motion. Can I please see favour through raising your hand? That motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much to Julie and Andrew for that presentation. It's greatly appreciated and we look forward to it being released publicly on the 5th of November.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you, everyone.
Councillors, while I've got the Health, Environment and Waste Manager, I believe we have some general business for Michael. Did you want to speak to that, Councillor Bradley?
Yeah, thank you so much. I have spoken to Michael and Michael has spoken to a number of councillors as well about the Eco Forum that is usually held every 2 years to look at maybe having that yearly, maybe with Leaf. But anyway, just to progress that or to consider that, I should say, there's a general business item which is up on the screen requesting a report come back to review Council's Eco Forum.
For the benefit of the audio recording, would you like to read it out, Councillor?
Yes, certainly. That the Health, Environment and Waste Manager, in conjunction with the Customer Experience and Community Engagement Manager, be requested to undertake a review of Council's Eco Forum and submit a report to a future Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee identifying options for engaging with the community on environmental matters.
Councillor Bradley has moved the motion on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Michael, do you have any general business for us?
No, Mr. Chairman.
then I release you to go back to work. And we'll move to item 4.1, and I'll ask that Stephen Ball, the Manager of Development Assessment, come forward along with Adam Avalos. Councillors, item 4.1 is in relation to MCUI 372-2019, preliminary approval for MCU to vary the effect of the Logan Planning Scheme 2015. Before I move into discussion, do any councillors want to declare a conflict of interest in relation to this matter? There being none, I'll now refer to item 4.1. Can the Development Assessment Manager, Stephen Ball, please enter discussions and speak to his report?
Through the Chair, you might recall that this item was presented at the August Committee. The applicant lodged a stop the clock notice preventing the recommendation of the committee by being ratified by the Council. I'll take the report as read. However, I'll just simply cover off the fact that this is a proposed variation to facilitate a specialised centre for a medical hub, which will be complemented by townhouse and apartment precincts, retirement living and aged care. So importantly, since the last time that you saw this report, the applicant has made some modifications, specifically in relation to the townhouses that were immediately adjacent to the residential areas to the west. This limits the townhouse height to 12 metres within that precinct, or 8.5 metres within 15 metres of the boundary. I also like to remind the Council that we need to consider this application anew because of the stop the clock notice, and it didn't reach through to the Council meeting. So the original officer recommendation is in play. Specifically, the previous change to the intersection to a left-in, left-out arrangement will require a new resolution from this Council. Also, while we're speaking about the roads, I thought I'd also cover off on a question from the previous committee meeting where there was some concerns raised about Beanley Road, specifically about some safety concerns. So in consultation with the Roads Department, I can confirm that subject to a favourable recommendation of this, favourable decision of this committee, the design brief will be finalised. The funding is available to complete some works. The department just needs to understand what the final design associated with this development will be. That will then be able to be put out and tendered. So as I said, the funding is available. They just need to await the outcome of the decision on this application so they can finalise their design brief. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Lane and Councillor Bradley.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to move an amendment to this application. It should be up on the screen. There we go. So would you like me to read that, Mr. Chair?
That would be lovely.
So that in accordance with section 61(3)(a) of the Planning Act 2016, the variation sought be approved in a preliminary approval for material change of use to vary the effect of the Logan Planning Scheme 2015 variation request. Really, who writes this? It's so long.
Lawyers.
At Lot 8 RP 157306 being 1677 Beanley Road, Underwood 4119, be issued in accordance with the attached conditions contained in attachment 2, with the exception of condition 7.16, which is to be amended as follows. Let me just get my
Take a breath,
out.
Councillor.
7.16, design and modifying the existing all movements intersection to the site to a left-in, left-out arrangement onto Beanley Road as defined in Austroads Guide to Road Design Part 4A, unsignalised and signalised intersections, and more specifically include the following. 7.16.1, curb and channel traffic islands, pavement works, line marking, signage and lighting. 7.16.2, extend the left eastbound auxiliary lane to 170 metres west of Cristaldi Avenue. 7.16.3, subject to Sidra modelling, provide a left turn slip lane on the northbound approach to Beanley Road, i.e. the southern leg. 7.16.4, provide a signalised pedestrian crossing across the development on the southern leg of the intersection. 7.16.5, provision of a U-turn facility on Beanley Road on the eastern approach at the intersection of Beanley Road and Millers Road. Mr Chair, in August I raised concerns relating to the removal of lights at the Old Australia Post Underwood site. With 3 sets of lights within 75 metres, the need for council to act on the application was important. Since the applicant stopped the clock on the 20th of August, before council had a chance to consider the report, I've worked closely with council officers to ensure a better outcome for residents, especially those residents who live on Turnot Court, Botanical Drive and Fairmont Crescent, whose houses adjoin the western boundary of the site. Now, most people know this is the Old Australia Post Underwood site, and those lights were put in as a direct result of federal intervention and demands for that specific site. I've pressed for a case for lower density residential development in the western area of the site and lower building height in this area, refer to lot 2B on the screenshots below. What this means is residents won't be looking up the towers from their back decks. Instead of a 30-metre high-rise apartment blocks in this area, it will now be townhouse precinct with a maximum height of 12 metres. Now, that's a big win for local residents adjoining the old Aussie Post site. The towers will be built on the site, but my understanding is they'll be closer to the commercial precinct, which will have a limited impact on existing residents. The biggest thing about this request, and I hope councillors do consider it fairly, is that we have 3 sets of lights within 75 metres of each other. Moving into a commercial area, we have a narrowing of the road, and there are a number of accidents that go unreported at that site and near misses. This opportunity to have a left turn out only will basically make life a lot easier for everyone driving along Beenleigh Road. It'll make it a lot safer for them with only 2 sets of lights within 75 metres, a big win. So I just put it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Would you like to... I'll move the amendment once debate is completed. I want to commend you on the great job you've done at working with the officers to get a much better outcome for your community that will have lower impacts on the nearby residential properties.
Sorry, can I just say the officers in the DA section are absolutely amazing. They've sat with me and talked me through this. Adam and Stephen, thank you so much for your patience and your guidance. It's very much appreciated.
You can say that. They love praise.
Thank you.
Councillor Bradley.
Yeah, I'll echo that. They are pretty awesome. I am happy to second that amendment, but can I just get clarification? Stephen, you said the Beenleigh Road. I actually raised this back in August. The 2 lanes, or it's actually 1 lane at the moment, but it goes from 2 lanes down the hill and then it goes into 1 lane. So is the design for 2 lanes on that downhill? Is that correct?
Through the Chair, the outcome of this application will then enable the road section to finalise the design brief, which actually will contain all that information within it. As I said, they'll finish that design brief, but I can ask the roads manager to come and give you a detailed briefing on what it will ultimately look like once they've completed that design brief, because it is predicated on the outcome of this development application. I
noticed that the manager is in the audience, so hopefully he can hear that and come and see me about that. That'd be great. Like I said, I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I have an amended motion moved by Councillor Lane and seconded by Councillor Bradley. Councillors, can I see support for that motion through raising of your hand? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. That is the last report for the Development Assessment Manager. Stephen, do you have any general business for us?
Through the Chair, I just have one general business item, which is just, you will have seen the email from me yesterday in relation to Council's pool safety campaign that we run on an annual basis. Each year we run this. It's really important. It's for our community. So I just, if any of you would like to reach out to me to get any further information on how you could post it on your own individual socials, I'm happy to help with that. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Councillors, do you have any general business for Stephen? There being none, you can go back to work, mate. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5.1, and I'll ask for the Economic Development and Strategy Manager, David Radich, to enter discussions. Before we do that, councillors, would anyone like to declare a conflict of interest on the Logan Housing Study 2020? There being none, Dave, you can speak to your report.
Through the Chair, under the leadership of the new council, we've completed Logan City Council's first housing study. Kathy Ross, the program leader of city planning, is going to speak to the report.
Thank you. Through the Chair, Over the last decade, and particularly from the inception of the Logan planning scheme in early 2015, Logan has actually experienced very significant residential and population growth. This growth has actually occurred within our existing residential areas, in our new growth areas, including places like Park Ridge and Bars Scrub, and interestingly, our rural residential building approvals have still been steadily growing over the last decade. To ensure that our planning policy, so particularly through planning scheme amendments or through a new planning scheme or other policies such as our infrastructure charges, etc., remain relevant and responsive to the growth, and particularly from the last 5 years. In early 2020, the Economic Development and Strategy branch through the program commenced a housing strategy. So this housing strategy will actually inform these future planning policies, such as future planning scheme amendments, as well as other initiatives and work being undertaken across various branches within council. So the housing strategy, it comprises 3 stages. So the first stage is the Logan housing study, and we're happy to report that that's now been completed. So there was an attachment of the housing study with your report. The report is fundamentally based on comprehensive research and analysis that's been undertaken. So officers within the city planning program have extensively reviewed planning policy. So they've been through just about every page of the Logan planning scheme where it's related to housing and residential development. We have undertaken an extensive analysis on our residents in terms of their social, economic and housing characteristics. So you'll see a few pages related to that in this report. We've also, with the establishment of a research unit last year, they've set up various data sets and models and analytics related to development and housing over the last 10 years. So we've been able to actually track what's been happening on the ground, the type of housing products that we're seeing, design outcomes. So there's various case studies that's been undertaken in relation to what does the policy say as opposed to what's actually happening on the ground and where are the gaps. We've revamped a growth model, so there's been some testing on different growth scenarios within that modelling, and you'll see one of the maps that are in the study here in relation to potential future growth. They've also undertaken extensive research Australia-wide into housing and residential development studies, and where they've also related to Logan. And late last year, through our industry reference group, we conducted a survey of industry representatives and asked them a set of questions related to how do they see different types of housing development, what are their thoughts around the delivery of social infrastructure to new greenfield developments, and where they think the difference between what council should actually be providing in terms of, or in relation to what development should actually be providing. The housing study, it's actually highlighted, so you'll notice the back pages of here, various opportunities. So whilst there's some challenges for council, that basically has led to a variety of opportunities for council moving forward, particularly for stage 2 and stage 3 of the broader strategy. So the good thing about stage 2 and stage 3 of the strategy is that it'll work together. So where we'll be taking the findings from the housing study, we'll be able to immediately also have a look at what are the policy mechanisms that we can put into play and bring back to council to address some of those opportunities and the challenges. So the findings pretty much related to, we do have multiple active residential developments across Logan. We do need to go back and look at current and other innovative ways for infrastructure delivery, including planning and funding. We are currently reviewing different codes within the planning scheme related to design. So what we have seen with certain types of housing product is what has been proposed through to what we are actually getting on the ground and where that gap is in policy. And it's been a really interesting study to also look at targeted groups across Logan, so targeted demographic groups such as ageing in place. And that will be something that we do need to consider now over the next 10 to 15 years to actually help ageing in place and the different types of housing that are required, and also the phenomenon around lone person households. So how do we cater for that group of people who actually want to live alone or in multi-groups and the different type of housing product? So we're proud to present the Logan Housing Study, and stage 1 of the strategy is complete. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kathy, do any councillors have any questions? Must be an excellent report. I'd just like to say that I'd like to thank the staff for the work that you've done on this. It's really valuable, and when councillors were briefed on this, the amount of interest that came through and the questions that were asked showed how important it is to members of our community. The City of Logan has experienced unprecedented population and housing growth over the past decade, and this trend is expected to continue. And what's amazing about a city that's growing is that means the opportunities for our community are growing as well, and that's what we need to focus on when we look at the challenges that lay ahead. Council plays a critical role in housing for its residents, and Council aims to plan for and guide housing and residential developments in suitable locations, ensuring that housing is appropriate for Logan's diverse population now and into the future. And I'd like to note that Council Logan has been carrying the lion's share of growth under the South East Queensland Regional Plan. We're actually ahead of our growth targets, and that gives us the privilege to be able to design the future growth of our city in areas that make common sense to people in the street, so that you will actually see higher densities near public transport, and you will see, and we'll be able to protect our rural residential and large suburban blocks in areas where people expect that kind of lifestyle. And that's really important for the residents that elect councillors all across the city to know that we are being strategic, that we are focusing people who want public transport on higher density housing, and people who prefer a more typical quarter-acre block lifestyle, that they can have that too. And our city can offer that to anyone who wants to move here, which is why 1 in 2 people moving to Queensland over the next 30 years will move to Logan, because we will offer more diversity and better options than any other city in this state. I just want to commend again the councillors for supporting this initiative, and that we're using an evidence-based approach to our planning and economic development strategies across the city. Logan continues to be a place for families that offers affordable choices for housing and jobs for our community, and the next stages of the study will ensure our city is well positioned to manage that growth sustainably. Great work, Kathy. Great work, Dave. Keep it up, and I can't wait to see stage 2. Can I please have someone move this report? Thank you, Councillor Kransky. Seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that has been carried unanimously. I don't have any further reports for the Economic Development Manager. Dave, do you have any general business for us? Councillors, do you have any general business for Dave? Excellent. There being no further general business, I declare the meeting closed at 9:48 a.m. The City Infrastructure Committee, nearly said lifestyle, City Infrastructure Committee will commence in 10 minutes at 9:58.